Investing your money is one of the most powerful ways to build wealth, and if you're not doing it properly, the odds of you actually retiring successfully are reduced significantly. But if you implement the strategies I'm about to show you, you'd be able to have a retirement that has tax-free income while having a portfolio that's growing larger and larger that you can also withdraw any of it completely tax-free. And I will say, if you do have the right mindset, I believe anybody can achieve what I'm about to show you. So before we dive deep into the actual strategy, let's go over a quick overview to the Roth IRA. So a Roth IRA is an individual retirement account where the money that you're going to be contributing into this account is going to be taxed upfront in the current year. From there, the money in this account can be invested however you want, similar to a traditional brokerage account. But the difference with the Roth IRA account is the money that you are investing is not going to be taxed in that year or any of the years that you have the account. But something you need to be aware of though is because this is a retirement account, you're not going to be able to withdraw the money until you're at the retirement age that is 59 and a half. You could actually withdraw the contributions from the account at any time, but if you're going to take out earnings from the growth of your investments, you're going to be charged a 10% penalty fee and you have to pay income taxes. But doing that would ruin the purpose of having a Roth IRA and consistently investing into it, because once you are at that retirement age, everything in the account is completely tax-free, and if you do this properly, that can save you tens to even hundreds of thousands of dollars from taxes. And that's also assuming that you meet the 5-year rule, meaning you've had the account for at least 5 years. And like I said, if you want to take advantage of this, you truly want to start as early as you can. And another thing to mention about the Roth IRA is that there is a contribution limit, which is the maximum amount of money you can contribute into the account each year. For the year 2024, that number is $7,000 if you are under the age of 50, and if you're over 50, that is $8,000. This number also goes up over time with inflation, so expect that to increase over time. Now, if you're a high income earner, there actually is an income limit on how much you can contribute based on your income. And once you pass a certain amount, you can't even contribute into the account anymore. But another way around that is by doing a backdoor Roth IRA. You could look that up online, and I'll also be making a video on that in the future. So with that covered, let's now go over the ultimate strategy to using your Roth IRA successfully, with the first step being to contribute your money. So the first step is extremely important because it may be the hardest one for you, and that is to contribute the maximum amount into your Roth IRA every year. And although that may be extremely difficult, having this for your retirement is going to be extremely beneficial, and you're about to see why. So to be exact on what the max contribution is, at least for this year 2024, with $7,000 a year, that would be $583 a month, which is equivalent to $19 per day. Now that's obviously a lot, but if you can find an extra side job or start your own business, it's definitely doable. And if you are worried because you can't contribute the maximum amount into this account, don't worry, because you could just start with whatever you can possibly do, and at least you're getting started, which is better than not doing it at all. Now, this is obviously the hardest part of it all, because you're going to have to fork up the money up front in order to actually save and invest in this account for your retirement. But if you do follow these steps, I truly believe that your future self is going to thank you 100 times over. So with whatever amount you decide to contribute, the next step, number 2, is to invest in the highest yet safest growth potential investments. You see, when you're investing in a Roth IRA, the goal is to not be touching this until you're at retirement, and to think of it as a way that you're not going to be using the money in the near future. So you should be looking at long-term growth potential investments that can do very well for you in regards to growth. For example, the simplest option you could choose that has historically done very well is the S&P 500, which is pretty much a way to buy 500 of the largest publicly traded companies in the US all within one purchase. Which, by the way, it's extremely easy and cheap to just own a simple index fund like that. In fact, just to give you a reference, Warren Buffett recommends 90% of your investments go into the S&P 500 index fund, which is exactly what he has set for his wife following the time of his passing. Which the specific one that he recommends is actually through Vanguard, where their ETF ticker VOO has since 2010 averaged a 14.32% annual return. Now, I know using that over time is not going to happen, so I'm going to use a bit more realistic of a number when I show you the calculations on how you could do this and how well it could do for you over time. But I'm saying all this because the S&P 500 has historically proven to be one of the easiest ways to simply build wealth by putting your money into it, forgetting about it, and letting it ride over time. There's many investments out there that you could definitely outbeat the S&P 500, but if you take on too much risk, you'll actually lose much more than what the S&P 500 would have generated. So by simply putting your money into the market and potentially into the growth market, you are going to be getting the highest chance, in my opinion, to actually see success with a long-term investment portfolio. And I'm not just saying this because of the statistics, I'm telling you this because of my actual experience getting into individual companies. I thought I could outbeat the market. I did not, and I've realized over the past few years the returns I've been able to safely get by index funds has been much better than anything I did prior to that. So if you are one looking into more growth opportunities, I would avoid the individual stocks and more so get growth index funds, because over the long term, at least with more diversification in different companies, you'd have much less risk of actually losing money. Now, unless you're Warren Buffett or Ray Dalio, if you are one looking for individual stocks, the only thing I'd say is to keep it at a minimum, because you don't want to expose your portfolio to too much risk relying on one specific company too heavily. So with that noted, for calculation purposes, I'm just going to be using the S&P 500 as the only investment, just to keep this simple, which I will be calculating inflation at the end, but since 1990, the S&P 500 has averaged a 10.24% annual return, and don't worry, I will factor in inflation at the end of the example for a better comparison. So with that noted, going on to step number 3 is going to be to repeat the investments consistently. So now you understand how much money you can put into the account and potentially the best investments that you could use. Now you have to actually implement the strategy. As I said, making the money is going to be the hardest part, but the biggest reason that people fail is because they're not able to stick with something consistently over a period of time. Trust me, from my experience, I know it's very easy to start something and then forget about it. Now, the younger you start, the better, but for this example I'm going to use in this video, I'm just going to assume that you're at the age of 30, starting a brand new Roth IRA that you've never contributed money into before. So in order to take advantage of this account and reach that $7,000 per year maximum, that's for the year 2024, with the Roth IRA, that means that every year you'd have to contribute $583 per month. Now, I actually have a Roth IRA through Fidelity where you can actually set up an automatic transfer to put money into the account from your bank account, and you can even have recurring investments set up so the entire process is done completely for you. I'm not sure about other platforms, but I do know if you can have it automatically scheduled for you, that the likeliness of you actually succeeding with this strategy is going to improve. And like I said, whether you do the max contribution or not, you're at least starting and getting yourself in the right direction. Even if you're in your 30s or 40s, allowing time for your investments to grow can still benefit you greatly with the tax advantages for when you are 60 and up. For those young, the earlier you start, the better, and I'm going to show at the end of the video a calculation if you were to start this at 18, which is actually crazy. So with that said, now that you understand the importance of consistently investing, the next step is that you simply act as if you don't even have the account. I like to call this step the hidden treasure chest, because when we see money that we can use, we want to use it. But if we put it away, we can't find it, then how are we going to be able to use it? By doing this, you really want to just act as you will not withdraw any of this money, and if it has to be a safety net because you have nothing else left, then you're at least putting money into it with the purpose of going for your future. The reason I mention all this is because of Parkinson's second law, where it states, based on the psychology of human activity, as your income grows, so do your expenses. And I know your current income isn't going to be growing from this Roth IRA, but the fact is you need money that's saved in order to put into the Roth IRA, and if you put it in the wrong direction, you're obviously not helping. Like I said, if you do have the right mindset for this with consistent effort, I believe anybody can achieve this, and you don't necessarily need to invest all your money in index funds, but just understand that a Roth IRA, something for your retirement, is going to be extremely important for your future, because you don't know where you're going to be at the point of time. So all in all, my analogy for the hidden treasure chest is the fact that you have a paycheck or you make money and potentially automatically put gold coins, little pieces of your paycheck, into this over time. After 6 months, it becomes larger. After 12 months, after 5 years, you notice the difference. And after 10, 20, 30, 40 years, by the time you're able to withdraw, the coins, there could be so many in it that you could be withdrawing coins from it, while the actual treasure chest that you've now seen unlocked, you can see that there's so much in it that it's not going to lose value. And if anything, you can pull out coins, sustain value, and potentially even grow it even larger, make more coins here, and be pulling out gold coins at the same time. So based off of that, let me just go over exactly what you could do when you turn 60. This part is really important to understand because with a Roth IRA, there are no RMDs, and this stands for required minimum distributions, and pretty much means that you're never forced to pull out these gold coins from the treasure chest, where something like a traditional Roth IRA actually does require you to withdraw the money at a certain age. I find this extremely valuable because you can have this account for the rest of your life, and you could be pulling out little gold coins over time and not the entire thing because it lasts your entire life. But the most important thing I'll mention is that you don't need to be withdrawing at 60. When you're that age, you can. If you don't need to, I would not recommend it. I would allow your portfolio to keep growing as much as possible. There's tax advantages to it. If you don't need it, I would not recommend it. And if you want some statistical proof on why exactly I say that, it's because if you used the strategies that I've mentioned from the age of 30, you would would now have a portfolio worth $1.3 million, which is crazy because all you would have contributed was $217,000 into the account, but because you let it grow from your investment, you would have made over $1.1 million simply because you invested the money instead of spending it or leaving it in a savings account or underneath your bed. And that right there is the power of compound interest, because as you make money, it will just continue to make more and more money off of that money. Now, obviously, a $1.3 million tax-free portfolio sounds great, but like I said, if you don't need to be withdrawing from the account, if you kept the same approach and did everything the exact same way, but you just left it for 5 more years, by the age of 65, your portfolio would now be $2.2 million, which is crazy in only 5 years. That literally means that by doing this, you would have made almost $1 million in 5 years, where it took you 30 years to build up the $1.3 million portfolio. So now that you understand that, the last step I'm going to show you is how to actually utilize the Roth IRA that you've built. So let's just use the simple example of being at age 30, investing into the S&P 500, max contribution every year. By the time you're 60, that portfolio would be at $1.3 million, completely tax-free. Now, there's many different ways you could go about using this account, because you could just let it ride for a few more years. You could withdraw the entire amount. By the time that you actually want to withdraw something from the account, that would be the time that I would recommend to adjust your investments, change them to dividend income earning opportunities. Because the Roth IRA is completely tax-free, you could change this to whatever you want, and you could take out any income without any taxes. So you could change this to a dividend income opportunity that is maybe potentially paying you monthly income. In fact, because the Roth IRA is completely tax-free, investments like REITs or balanced funds are some of the best opportunities you could take advantage of due to the tax structure. Now, please understand that I'm going to show you real-world ETFs to provide you a good example on how this could work, but I'm not saying to be using these investments, and who knows what there will be in 30 years, but I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research. I really just want you to be aware of the concept of actually applying this. So you started at 30, you consistently hit the max contribution every year into the S&P 500, and that is now $1.3 million at the age of 60, and you want some income, so you could change the investments to monthly income earning ETFs like JPI and JPQ, where these two ETFs use option strategies to provide income to its shareholders while tracking underlying indexes like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. Now, although these ETFs have not grown in value the same amount that the S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100 has, they can provide you an extremely high dividend yield, which could be between 6 to even 10%, while at least sustaining some growth. Now, a very important thing is that when you are looking at dividend earning opportunities, you don't want to look at just the dividend yield. You need to understand that the actual return the investment is going to get you over time is also sufficient, because you don't want your portfolio going down even though you're taking gold coins out of it. And the biggest reason why I say monthly income ETFs is because, first off, you have diversification, you're getting an income every month, but you were also able to avoid the fact that most of these are going to be taxed as ordinary income, and because you're in this tax advantaged account, you don't need to worry about that. But all in all, if you had this exact portfolio in the year of 2023 and you had these two ETFs, that means that you would have generated from dividends alone in that year over $132,000, which is roughly $11,000 a month from dividend income alone that's completely tax-free. Which, by the way, if this wasn't in a Roth IRA and you had to pay ordinary income taxes on that, assuming it's the only income that you have, that would have been roughly $21,000 in taxes that you would have had to pay. And yet alone, no matter how you invest and split up your $1.3 million investment portfolio, if it wasn't a Roth IRA, you'd be having to pay at least tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars on taxes, like I mentioned earlier. Now, as I promised, if we adjust the inflation to the S&P 500 that was noted at 10.24% per year, the actual adjusted number with inflation would have been 7.53% of an average annual return per year. That would compute to a current value in today's economy of $789,000, where the amount you could get from the same monthly dividend income portfolio would be $78,000. Now, to simply break that down, that means that $132,000 of dividend income that we're going to be able to achieve in 30 years by doing this, in today's purchasing power, that is equivalent to $78,000. Which can also be viewed as $6,500 a month completely tax-free. Now, the year 2023 was a great year, so I don't want to get your hopes up, but even if you were to take the dividends out of this portfolio, your account would have still grown 11.64% to now being $1.5 million. Now, that's definitely an outlier because that was a great year, and if you're going to take out dividend income, do not expect to be achieving that high of a result, but just understand that you can grow your portfolio while taking out dividends so that the treasure chest does not go down in value, If anything, it gets more coins while you pull out the coins. Now, if you don't like the example of using the monthly income ETFs, you could at least get dividend income from any sort of opportunity that you like, where you can pull coins out of it while it still sustains growth. But don't forget that this large treasure chest that you have, yes, you're taking dividend income, you're taking this tax-free income from it, but that treasure chest, it's all tax-free. Now, for those younger that are watching, I just want to highlight the fact that if you started at 18 and you did this until you were 60, your portfolio would now be roughly $4.4 million completely tax-free. But of course, if we adjust that for inflation, that portfolio would actually be equivalent to $2 million of today's purchasing power. But with dividend income opportunities, that is plenty. So all in all, with the Roth IRA, yes, you have to pay taxes on the coins that you put into the treasure chest. But as you build up this treasure chest and do it over time, you'll be able to take out gold coins tax-free and potentially have this portfolio, this large account that is completely tax-free that you could take away whenever you want. Just understand that when you are doing this throughout the years, that is the reason why you're doing it, which I think is extremely motivating. With that said, if you are interested in any of the other relevant videos I've created on Roth IRAs and other ways for you to build wealth, then I highly recommend you check out the videos I have linked in the description below. Which, while you're at it, check out my free Investing 101 for Beginners guide and other resources that I've created for you. And also check out my free newsletter where I send out once a week an email on personal or financial topics that I think you could really benefit from. And as always, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notifications button for future content like this.